All right, welcome back to the channel. Today I've got a very, very special guest on with me, Danielle, and she's been in the program for just over a month now, and she's absolutely been crushing it. So today we're just going to break down her journey on how she's seeing such explosive growth very, very quickly in her coaching business, and just kind of pick that apart a little bit. So Danielle, thank you so much for coming on. And yeah, you might just kind of give me a quick little rundown, quick little background, who you are, what you do, and then kind of what you've been able to accomplish so far.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me, Jeremy. It's really my pleasure to share a little bit about what I've learned so far and the results I've achieved in the program so far. So I'm Danielle Bradley, and I'm a career coach. I really specialize in helping mid-career professionals get hired for their best role yet. That is what I do. That's my niche, and I have a signature offer to help them do that. And I joined the program, yeah, a few weeks ago, really, and was able to achieve some incredible results that surprised even me. I mean, I had some pretty aggressive targets for the year, which is part of the reason why I hired you. But I didn't really fully, I guess, expected that I would be able to double my highest month that I'd had in the past year, and then it was actually 3x'd my average monthly sales revenue already in my first month in the program. So yeah, that
Wow.
surprised me.
Wow. Yeah, that's incredible. How long have you been doing the career coaching for? And yeah, what have kind of the last couple of years been looking like to kind of lead to where you're at now? And then kind of finishing that off, what do you know now that you wish you knew kind of back then over the last like year or two?
Mm. Okay, let me think through that. So I started career coaching in 2015, but I was doing it while I was still in corporate. So I was, in senior sales leadership roles in corporate, and then I went full time in my business partway through 2022. That was like my first year full time, not my full year. So 2023 was my first full time year. And I went from 2022, 2023, I 5 times my business, and I thought I was doing really well, right? I was like, wow, okay, this is working. I'm not going to have to go back to corporate, but I wasn't really hitting the targets that I wanted, or I wasn't really set up to do that, to continue that growth, I don't think. And the thing is that you help me understand that. I don't know that I've told you this, but you really helped me to um, see that I was actually plateaued. Even though I'd had a really good year, I was plateaued. My revenue
Mhm.
was kind of going up and down, and I wasn't able to hit that higher monthly revenue. It was, yeah, it just wasn't breaking through. So that was the first thing, is like you highlighted that big problem for me. And just that realization, had me take action, obviously, had me definitely want to work with you and understand what I needed to do differently to be able to break through that.
That's amazing. Yeah. I find a lot of people, we like, our brains are funny. Our minds can play tricks on us, and we can, like, we tell ourselves, oh no, we got this, we're making progress. But then you look at kind of the tangible results, you're like, oh, I've made the same amount of money for the last 6 months every month. And yeah, so good for you for really identifying that and embodying that. That said, how'd you come across me anyways?
So I always do a lot of reflection around the holiday period and sort of planning for the new year and setting goals and all of that. And I thought, okay, well, I've hit a certain revenue goal, but it's not exactly where I want to go. So I thought I actually Googled how to scale my online business from 200K to 1 million. That's how I found you. You popped up right away. And then I started binge watching your content as you recommend. I followed you as you recommend, and then you DM'd me, right? In a very authentic way. And then I binge watched some more, and then I thought, wow, this is exactly what I need. I mean, at first, I was a little concerned about the age gap. And then I quickly realized that it doesn't matter at all, that you definitely had a knowledge, expertise that I needed. Yeah.
That's amazing. Why don't we double click on that a little bit too? Because I know I actually had another call just a few days ago with Tom, talking about his first 100K month as well. And I know you and him are very similar offers, similar niche, similar audience, and also similar age gap between me as well. And yeah, one thing I really respect about you guys is like you kind of like really just kind of leave the ego at the door. Because a lot of people in your position would be like, okay, there's this crazy Canadian blonde kid on the internet, and what does he know, right? He's only 26 and stuff like that. But yeah, um, that said, like when it comes to the community, because I know you've been very active in the community, made a lot of connections and stuff like that. What's been kind of like some of the most powerful kind of takeaways you've learned from just kind of being inside the community? Because I know just kind of addressing the elephant in the room, right? There's like the age gap. A lot of my clients are like me and similar age and stuff like that, 20s. And then going from there, but then also like it's mostly guys as well. So how's the community been? And I'd love to just kind of hear your honest, genuine, authentic thoughts on the experience so far.
Yeah, I'm so glad that I trusted you and I trusted my intuition about it, because from the outside looking in, it would be like, how on earth am I going to fit in? Right. I'm like probably older than your mom when we think about it. And it's, I knew that it was mostly men, right? I think you had a success story video of one woman that I watched. And so I kind of knew that going in, but I was like, I really want to learn. Like, I feel like there was something for me to learn. And as soon as I joined the program and went into the community, I just felt so at home. I felt welcome. I felt like everybody is just working towards bettering themselves and building their business and making a difference and serving clients. It's just such an amazing community. I absolutely love it. And that's one of the reasons I'm so active, because it gives me life. I mean, it just, um, the caliber, I was so impressed with the caliber of the people in the group that you have created. They're all really successful entrepreneurs. And I think it's exactly what I needed to get myself to this next level. I had been, in a lot of the similar circles for a number of years.
Mhm.
And this was such a change. And yeah, it's just been amazing. I can't say enough about the community.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, we're planning a client retreat in June somewhere in Europe. So details are to come, but I know Tom's confirmed him and his wife are coming. So a lot of other people have too. So that could be a really good opportunity to meet everybody in a much more intimate setting too. So just kind of dropping that there.
Yeah, I'd
But
love to go. Any excuse to go to Europe for sure.
yeah, yeah. But no, that's awesome. And I really appreciate you saying that too. And yeah, when it comes to like community building too, and you'll probably see this and you probably have seen this in your program too, when everybody else in there, like personally, I like to be the dumbest person in the room. Like I want to be part of those communities where, like you said, the caliber of the people is just like every single interaction you have, you can learn something from them. And I think the more you give, the more you get too. And you, like I said, you've been very active, helping out a lot of people and just kind of sharing your wins and stuff like that. And it's cool to see kind of like the snowball effect of that too. Like the more you give, the more you receive as well in return. But yeah, when it comes to like community building, it's important to be kind of strict on who you let into the community, because if it's just anybody and everybody, then it really dilutes that power and it doesn't pack as much of a punch. And especially when there's people kind of at all different levels and have different kind of questions and stuff like that too. Sometimes I've been in a lot of programs where you kind of feel like you outgrew it, right? And just the caliber isn't quite there. So that's just a little piece of advice for somebody watching. That's it. I know a massive thing that's contributed to your growth too has been your focus on sales. Do you mind kind of touching on that a little bit and maybe just kind of sharing like, is there like kind of one piece of sales advice that has kind of changed the game for you over the last couple of months? And yeah, we'll start there.
Well, the interesting thing is that I and you know this, I did work with a sales coach, still working, and
Yeah.
you can share about that probably more, but and it helped me a lot. But I feel like once I joined the program, seeing you and how confident you are in your marketing, in how you talk about sales, in how you expect people to come on, and it's an enrollment call, it's a sales call. So kind of seeing how you're going about doing all of that up close, I immediately got like a huge boost in my own confidence from
Mm,
just watching how you're going about, like your attitude and how you're approaching it. It's like, okay, well, if Jeremy can do it, I mean, I have years and years of sales experience, different than the consumer. But I thought, wow, it just gave me that huge boost in confidence just watching how you did that. And again, working with a sales coach also helped. And also narrowing down, or not narrowing down, but really sort of getting more clear on my niche through the marketing module that I devoured as soon as I joined the program. And the God mode marketing gave me so many ideas for content that was
mm.
directly related to my niche. And just going through that work, I feel like I showed up differently on my sales calls. It's a very strange thing. So all of a sudden, my close rate went from 30% to over 50%
Wow.
when I joined.
Wow. That's powerful.
Yes.
And you're right. It doesn't happen by accident. And a lot of the times when it comes to sales, and okay, I'll kind of unpack this in a couple different stages, but yeah, working with a sales coach, absolute game changer too, to really nail down the fundamentals, the foundation, objection handling, tonality, all that kind of stuff. Right. And it's funny, your sales coach is actually, as of this week, going to be hosting sales coaching calls in the community too, which could be awesome. And is an absolute weapon. He's taken over 7,000 calls himself and sold just about 7 million of coaching. So I know you two have been working on a very intimate basis, which is awesome. So I'm really excited for that, just to add value to the rest of the community too. But yeah, once you have the fundamentals and the foundations really dialed in, when it comes to sales, the way I see it is it's more so like a transfer of belief. And I love what you said about the conviction in your own offer, the confidence in your own offer and in yourself, and really just kind of like the prospects sense that. That's one of those intangible things that you can't really put your finger on when kind of like getting better at sales. It's just like it's hard to get better at sales, and it's hard to learn how to drive a car if you're just stuck in park, right? You have to do it, get a bunch of reps and stuff like that too. And then until you do that and really nail the fundamentals and everything, it's really hard to kind of measure and be able to manage like the level of conviction, right? So that is something that's very, very underrated and overlooked when it comes to sales, is that transfer of belief. And that kind of takes me into another point I wanted to touch on too, because we've kind of talked about it with like the caliber of the people in the community. Everyone's like exceptional what they do, and obviously you are too. When it comes to providing a good client experience, kind of shifting focus from like front end now towards back end service delivery and stuff like that, because it is one of the prerequisites to joining the community in the program, is like you have to be good at what you do, and otherwise you can't scale. So yeah, is there any advice you'd give to somebody on how to get your clients better results, how to provide an exceptional client experience, and to really just kind of foster an environment of success within your program?
Yeah. I mean, it's something that I see you model for us really well. And it's not being, it's not the word I'm looking for. It's redoing your program whenever there's a need, right? Because as you work with more and more people, you learn how to teach, how to coach, how to train better, how to explain your process better and better, and going back to your program to see what pieces need to be updated to serve your clients in the best possible way to give them the best results. That's something that I've seen you do. That's something that I've done. And I know I'm going to be learning more as I spend a bit more time in the program here. I'm sure I'm going to make some updates to my program as well. And that's all going to be in service to my clients and help them get better results faster, ultimately.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Um, Well, let me ask you this. What's one thing that you know now that you wish you knew like 2 months ago?
Hmm, that's a good one. I mean, hmm, honestly, this whole idea of that I was plateaued and I didn't see it. That was the biggest thing. You
Yeah.
can't fix what you don't know is a problem, right? It was a big, I talk a lot about having blind spots in my business with my clients. A lot of people have blind spots when it comes to their career, their resumes, their profile, their interviews, all of that, right? I talk about that
Mm,
a lot, but that was a big blind spot for me that
mm,
I just didn't know that I had plateaued. And if I didn't do anything differently, this year would be very much like last year, right?
gotcha. Yeah, that's a great answer, Danielle. To kind of pick that apart a little bit more, was there a specific like kind of moment or like kind of like a realization, like something that led to that realization where like, dang, I'm plateaued and like I am stuck? Was there like, can you pin that back to something specific at all?
It was
Or
something you said in one of your videos.
okay.
I've said it in multiple videos. Maybe it was your, I don't
Mm,
remember exactly where it was, but it was just dawned on me. It's like, oh my gosh, I'm actually plateaued, even though I five times my business, I'm plateaued. And I didn't want that.
mm,
And heading into the new year, it would have been more of the same if I didn't do anything differently. So that
mm.
awareness, right? I mean, I talk about this a lot in my coaching too. And once you have that awareness, that is the first step to making a change.
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome. Can you pin it back like your explosive growth? I know we've talked a lot about conviction, just showing up differently on sales calls and improving like the sales side of things, and also the marketing too. Um, are you able to kind of like put your finger on maybe like a list of like top three things that somebody could take action on today to then really just kind of like gain some extra traction and start building some momentum to be able to kind of set themselves up for kind of getting past that plateau if they're stuck right now?
Yeah. Well, I mean, one of the things that well, there's a few things that I learned already in the marketing module, right? But one of them was in my sale, and I still struggle with this. It's still a work in progress, to be honest, in my sales calls, but really digging deep into the pain, right? Into the problem. Not so much, of course, we're going to talk about the solution, right? But digging into the problem, market the problem, that is not something that I was doing. I was more focused on the solution. I didn't want to delve so much into the problem. And that's really what we need to do to be able to get people to realize they no longer want to stay in that problem, right? And it's very much
Mm,
what happened to me. It's like once I realized I'm stuck, I don't want to be in that plateau. I don't want to be stuck at this level. I need to make a change. I need to hire a new coach, right? In comes Jeremy.
mm.
Perfect. So that is a big thing. And the other thing that I learned from you that I am implementing slowly is throwing rocks at different methods and different solutions, right? As a way to
Mm,
differentiate yourself. And this was something that's very uncomfortable for me because in my corporate career, it's not something that we did. Even though we were in sales, we just never really threw rocks at the competition. We really focused on what we delivered. But I believe that throwing rocks is in service to our clients to really show them how our solution and our process can really help them get what they want, right? And it differentiates from other options that they've tried before that didn't work. That's the thing, right? So that was one that when I first heard you talk about that in the program, I remember writing in my notes, I have a problem with this. And then I like I'm resistant to this. But then the more I kind of saw how you were doing it and how some other people doing it, I'm like, actually, it's not a bad thing. It's in service to help people kind of understand what maybe isn't working and what will be different that is going to help them get what they want. So
mm.
those are yeah, two things that are really top of mind there. I know you asked for three, but
Those are powerful.
yeah.
And yeah, especially throwing rocks. That's honestly, that's like one of my most favorite things to do. I find it just so fun. But you're right. It really comes down to your intention behind it. And I know a lot of people kind of have like not the greatest sales process, or like they're incredible marketers and sales people, but then their program sucks and then their clients don't get what they paid for and stuff like that. Right. But when you truly have the intention to serve people and you have that conviction that what you have is going to completely change their entire life, then it forces like not even just forces you kind of, but like it just makes you show up in a completely different way. And you're not afraid to do stuff like that because without a shadow of a doubt, this person is going to be completely saved by working with me. Their life is going to be completely changed for the better. And if they don't work with me, then they're going to stay stuck where they're at, unhappy, unfulfilled, all that kind of stuff. So you're actually doing them a disservice if you kind of let them continue doing what hasn't been working. And especially in the online business space, sometimes it can seem like the Wild West, with a lot of people just kind of running around making all these bold claims and promises, but they're not actually having anything to back them up with. Right. And so a lot of people have been burned before and have a lot of resistance to certain things as well. So that for the rare ones who are actually really good at what they do, it makes it a little bit harder, a little bit trickier. But nonetheless, when you show up with that conviction because your intentions are aligned, then it just makes things so much more powerful. And I can really see that is something that you have truly, truly embodied. So it's super cool for me to see that. And I know there was some resistance there at the start, but then your intentions are aligned and really just here to serve, and people can sense that from a mile away.
Exactly. Yes, totally agree.
That's awesome. Another thing that I know, I think the first time we chatted, I remember you had mentioned that you invested into a lot of mentorships, programs, and stuff like that. You make that a regular habit to get into, which is incredible because that's such a powerful catalyst for growth and kind of like getting out of those plateaus and stuff like that. Do you have like an investment philosophy? Is there a certain timeline where it's like, okay, every quarter I'm investing into something or into myself? Is it kind of when you're feeling stuck? What does that look like? Because I know a lot of people just kind of shoot from the hip and just kind of go blind at it. But clearly with you've seen a lot of growth over the last couple of years. And I am a firm believer that success does not happen by accident. And so I'd love to just kind of hear your take on how you invest in things, kind of what your due diligence process looks like, so you can make sure it's a good decision and stuff like that. And then any other insights you'd have on that too. Really curious to hear.
Yes. I mean, I have invested a lot over the years, and it started with, the dream that I had that I'm living into today, of having this online business and coaching, and making a difference, having an impact in people's lives. It started a long time ago. And I think at the beginning, I was just, buying every program. I mean, there was a lot of shiny objects, right? It's like, oh, I need to know this and I need to learn this. And then you get into overwhelm and you're not really gaining traction. But the last couple of years, it's more really understanding and listening to sort of my intuition and also my business sense. If I have a business problem that I want to solve, I get very clear about what that problem is, what it's going to do for me to solve that problem. And then if I can't do it on my own, then I look to find someone that is going to be able to teach me that. So that's worked out really, really well the last couple of years. It's kind of this problem solution, right? And then I go all in and I implement. I implement. Like, my goals have actually been, for the last couple of years, if I invest in a several $1,000 program, I'm going to, I decide ahead of time before I make the investment how fast I'm going to make my money back.
I love that. And a
Yeah.
couple of things I want to touch on with this too. One about that mindset about going all in, and then also number two about intuition.
Yeah.
I'd love to kind of double click on both of those. So yeah, I have a very, very similar approach too. And I remember the first like scary investment I made a few years ago. It was like 30% of my net worth at the time, and I had zero income, just in my parents' basement. And it really scared me. But I told myself, I'm like, okay, this guy's making a lot more money than me. So he's a lot richer than me. He's a lot smarter than me, a lot further ahead, and he knows a hell of a lot more than I do. So I'm going to do every single thing this person tells me to do. And then I just did it. And then like got my very first sale a week and a half into like the 8-week program or something like that. And it was just like, it was crazy, but it was really scary too, because he forced, like he told me to do things that were against the grain of what was normal for me. And I had to break a lot of my old habits and beliefs and stuff like that. And it was very uncomfortable. And that's how we know we're growing, right? The growing pains for a reason. So yeah, I love that. Just kind of the mindset of going all in and implementing and executing. Do you have any other insight kind of geared towards that? Just like, because I know some people kind of like have this weird sense of entitlement when they invest into a program. They're like, oh, because I joined this program, because I invested, I'm entitled to the results. But like, that's just the first step. Then you got to implement. So I'd love to kind of hear your thoughts on that.
I mean, it's all about the implementation. I mean, I see it with my clients too, right? I mean, we can be the best coaches in our niche and have the best knowledge and the best training. Ultimately, people need to implement what we're saying and kind of get out of their own way, right? Like there's a lot of mindset blocks I think that people put between themselves and the execution. And I feel like, especially in your program, for instance, if you get stuck, there's always an avenue for you to get some help, right? You
Mhm.
can post in the community. You can, reach out to you. You can reach out to another member that I'm sure, I mean, I've seen it. People are just so willing to help each other out, even on a one-on-one basis, right? And so I think this is our duty is to make sure that we get our money's worth. That's how I look at it. I'm like, if I'm investing in this program, I want to get my money's worth. I respect my money and I want to, yeah, make sure that I get the result that I purchased the program for.
That's awesome. I think my computer or my camera just
Okay, I
overheated.
lost
So
you, lost you.
I'll switch you over to my other one right now.
Okay,
But there we go. We'll
there we
finish her
go.
here. But no, that's awesome, Danielle. And one of my coaches and one of my mentors, he's got this quote I heard him say a while back where he's like, first you make the decision to invest, then you have to make the decision, or then you have to make it the right decision. And so a lot of people like invest in the stuff, but then they don't actually do anything with it. They don't take action and they don't see the results. So yes, it's on us to make the decision to take the leap, but it's also on us to make it the right decision and get our money's worth, exactly like what you said there too. And it's funny, I see a massive trend, or maybe not a trend, but just an overall pattern in a lot of like the most successful coaches that I work with. And it like, I talk about this a lot where it's like, become the type of client that you want to attract. And all of the most successful clients that I work with are the ones that go all in, they burn their boats, and they make success their own personal responsibility to get the most out of the program and to really just like come to us when they're feeling stuck, when they have questions. Not be embarrassed, not be afraid. Like they're just action takers and fast movers. And it's not by accident that people like you just absolutely crush it. And that's one of the patterns that I see come up time and time again. So for anybody watching this video, please, I beg you, I urge you to become that type of client you want to attract. And then you'll be, well, you probably won't be surprised, but you'll definitely start attracting a lot more better clients for your program too. So that's awesome. But yeah, do you have something to say on that
I
point?
do have something to say about that because,
Okay.
when you talk about the embarrassment and, I'm like, okay, I'm learning new things with Instagram, right? I've built my business more on LinkedIn. I'm very well versed in that. Instagram, not so much. And in one of the calls recently, you had us do a task. And I mean, I didn't even know what button to push on my phone to get it done, right? So I had to come back. I was pretty embarrassed, but I'm like, hey, I'm gonna do this. Like I'm all in. I'm gonna do this. So I'm gonna go put myself through, harm's way, put myself through the embarrassment of not knowing what button to push to get the task done. And everyone was just so nice about it, right? I didn't feel like judged or anything like that ultimately. But yeah, it's important to just, yeah. get out of your own way and get it done no matter what.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right. I think probably one of the last topics I really want to touch on, and you brought it up not too long ago, is about intuition in business. And I love this topic because it's something that I've really been exploring a lot more in the last few years, to the point where it doesn't even feel like I make my own decisions anymore. It all just comes from like above. And I know it's a lot like easier said than done to like follow your heart, listen to your intuition. And a lot of people might say like that it doesn't really have a place in business, but I think it has the highest place when it comes to business. So I'd love to hear your take on kind of like what intuition means to you in your business, kind of how you listen to it, and if somebody's kind of like having a hard time really just kind of like identify like what that voice is, and identifying kind of when they're kind of being guided in a certain direction, kind of how to listen to that and kind of take action. Because a lot of the times, and I hear this a lot, where it's like you have to run your business by the numbers, and like it's got to make logical sense and stuff like that. But like every time I've just listened to my intuition, it never makes logical sense to do the thing. And then I do it, and then I see massive growth on the other side. So I'd love to just kind of hear your take on that too, and explore this a little bit further.
Oh, that's such a good topic. I love it because I'm the very rational, very numbers focused, right? All this training from corporate and very, common sense. But as I'm getting older, I'm paying way more attention to my intuition because it's just this inner knowing. And all I have to do is, yes, I can listen to the logical brain, but to make decisions, I love listening to my intuition because I don't see everything with my logical brain. There's just things that I can't access, and there's just something else with my intuition and really paying attention to patterns, signs, inner knowing. And that's exactly what happened when I found you because for several weeks prior to doing that Google search, I just on some level knew, even though the numbers were good, I had, hit kind of the targets that I wanted for the year and had multiplied my business, but there was just something about the next year that I knew I needed to do something different. So that was, yeah, my intuition talking. There's something that needs to happen. And I was moving away from maybe other, not training, but just I had been in the same circles for a long time, right? In terms of entrepreneurship and business. And there was just something in me that said, no, this is not what's going to get you to the next level. Even though there are some people in those groups that have gotten there, this is not what you need. This is not, the path that you need. There was just something talking to me about that. And then when I Googled and did that search, and then I found you and I started listening and watching to your content, it was like, I need to listen to this. This is a sign. Like, this is exactly what I need. I'm gonna follow it. And I certainly have had no regrets about that.
That's amazing. Yeah. And we could have a whole conversation just geared towards this, because I love talking about it. I made a handful of videos on it too. And it's just like, yeah, it's funny because it's kind of counterintuitive to what most people talk about when it comes to business, about like you said, being very rational and like numbers focused, which is important. Like when it comes to the ads and all that, like the numbers and stuff like that. Yeah, you got to look at the data, but also that does only tell kind of one side of the story. That's just kind of one side of the coin, right? So yeah, that's awesome. But we'll wrap things up here, Danielle, because I know you've got another call shortly and I want to be respectful of your time. But just want to say thank you so much for coming on the channel and sharing with us all your wisdom and your insights and everything like that. um One last question I'll ask is, somebody that is kind of plateaued and stuck, what advice would you give them right now? And it might be kind of what you alluded to earlier, but what advice would you give somebody who's plateaued, they're stuck, and like they're working really hard, they're doing a lot, but they're not seeing the needle move forward. They're not seeing the revenue increase and stuff like that. What piece of advice would you give them?
Yeah, I mean, I would have them tap into their intuition, speaking of which, but also like don't be afraid to get some help, right? There's just so much available out there, and a program like your program, Jeremy, is incredible. It is something that if I didn't invest, I mean, I see some of the stories, you had someone who was plateaued for 5 years. Like, thank God that wasn't me because, well, I don't have that much time. I mean, I'm a bit older, right? So I'm not going to be working for the next 25 years, let's just say, right? So thank God I wasn't in a position where I had to be stuck for 5 years. That would have been pretty depressing. And so, yeah, if somebody is finding themselves in that situation, it's kind of identifying, being open to finding some solutions, right? To looking up to people that have different experiences and different knowledge that can really help to completely transform your trajectory in your business, right?
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. Well, Danielle, thank you so much for coming on the channel today. It's been an absolute honor and a pleasure having you in the program, working with you as well, and just kind of seeing your explosive growth as well, just over the last month or so. And I know everybody else in the community, like I said before, we're all rooting for you, and we love seeing those wins as well coming through seemingly every day now, which is awesome. You might have to hire a VA soon to post your wins in
Oh,
the community.
to post my wins. Yeah, I was gonna say I
Yeah,
have a PA already, but yeah, she might need to do the posting for me.
yeah.
Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for creating this program in this wonderful community. Yeah, it's definitely changing the course of my business, and I'm super grateful for that, and grateful to you.
Thank you so much, Danielle. All right. Appreciate you. And that said, before we wrap up, if you're watching this right now, you're feeling stuck, you're plateaued, and you want to make this year a lot different than the last one, then booking a call down below, speak with me or one of my team members, or message me over Instagram, and we'll get you set up properly. So that said, again, Danielle, thank you so much. And we'll see you guys in the next video.
Awesome.